I made a video about Syria last night, intending to put it out today, and it's out of date. That's how quickly things are happening. But however quickly things are happening in Syria now, the repercussions, the reverberations, and the effects will be with us for years to come. Not least because of the refugees that will be forced out of these areas. And I'm not talking about Syria, I'm talking about Kurdistan at the moment. I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. Syria has historically had a very strong relationship with Russia. I think back to the 60s, but it could have been back to the 50s, because Russia always tried to cultivate this area. They wanted a warm water port, and they found one in Syria. I'll get back to that quite soon. But the Russian adventure in Ukraine has bankrupted Russia and destroyed a generation of soldiers. And so Russia cannot support Syria anymore. Iran also supported Syria. Now Iran is in such a bad financial situation after its disasters, pouring money into Hezbollah and Hamas in an attempt to destroy Israel, that the Iranian government is now putting out appeals on Iranian television asking women to donate their gold jewellery to help pay for Iran's, well, I don't know, probably their army, I don't know, keep Iran going in some way. Whatever, I'm not sure that many women will be donating their jewellery to Iran, because I'm sure most Iranians know that the Iranian government is on its last legs. It sort of reminds me of the way the Nazi government during the disastrous winter campaign in Russia were asking German women to give their fur coats to the state so they could hand them out to German soldiers in the snows of Russia. And when that happened, by hindsight, we can see that was the end of the German war effort. Right, so what's happening in Syria? Well, look, we have Iran and Turkey, and they have always been at daggers drawn over influence in this area. Iran wanted to expand its ancient Persian Empire westwards so they'd have access to the Mediterranean. To do that, they'd already subdued Iraq. That won't last, of course. There'll be factions turning up in Iraq soon enough. And they were sort of making nice to Syria. And in the end, what they wanted to do was build themselves an empire that went from the Arabian Sea to the Mediterranean. And Israel was in the way there. So not only did they hate Jews, but they needed the corridor, and that was going to be the cherry on the cake. Well, it didn't quite work out like that, did it? Now, Turkey also had an empire which used to extend all the way round here, and they want to expand. So we've got these two here at this border here. Now, Turkey has this resource here. Not many people are quite aware of how important this is. This is water. And Turkey has been, and these up here as well, and it happens to be in an area which would be Kurdistan if there were any justice in this world. But no, Turkey wanted to keep hold of it, and they've been building dams on these rivers all the way along, because that way they could control water going into Iraq and so choke the influence that Iran had in this area. I did a whole video about the water resources. So there's Turkey will be taking advantage of the mayhem in Syria. There was an area here called the northeastern autonomous area, and it was more or less ruled by a warlord. Assad just let him get on with it, and he was hammering the Kurds. And now Turkey will be hammering the Kurds and the top end of Syria. And what they're going to do, Turkey is going to try to get more control over this. It may already be making inroads up here on this water source, and when it does that, the whole area is going to be in turmoil. As for Syria, well, I want to show you what Syria is becoming. This is a list of, hang on, I can't get to the top. This is a list of all the armed factions. Now, it's somewhat out of date because they're talking here about the Syrian Arab Republic. So some of those factions, some of the soldiers there will have taken their uniforms off and suddenly reinvented themselves as farmers or car mechanics or whatever. But some of them will still be fighting. Some of the factions in this left-hand column will still be fighters. Here's the opposition. Here's the autonomous administration of the north and east Syria I was talking about before. And these are the jihadists. Now, let's have a look at all of these factions. Now, pretty impressive, isn't it? And they're all in this area. There is one possibility for this area that I'm considering right now, and it has to do with a port called Tartus. Tartus is a port owned by Russia. It's Russia's, at the moment, Russia's own major access to the Mediterranean. They have lots of stuff there. Now, they may make peace with the Syrian regime, and they may protect this area here, which is also an Alawite area, an area where the Alawite Muslims are. And when I say Alawite Muslims, I'm probably not being accurate. Assad was an Alawite, and the Alawites were a sect of Islam which, personally, I think are probably not proper Muslims. They were the sort of, there are a few of those in the whole Middle East who pretended to be Muslims to save their lives and their communities and carried on their ancient religions in private, in secret. And I think the Alawites are, they're supposed to be Shia, but I think that they have their own agenda. And it's quite possible that this area here might be held by Alawites and Russians. It might form like a sort of mini-state. I mean, who's to know? At the moment, the government, the apparent government that's taken over Syria, are allowing the ex-prime minister of Syria to hand over the government in a sort of civilized way. I saw a picture of him being led out of one building, and he doesn't look like they've been beating him up or anything, although he is surrounded by soldiers. By armed men anyway. As I say, it's not possible to say what's happening, but I don't think that the gentlemanly regime which has, or at least the regime which is projecting an air of gentility, will stay that way for very long. It will have to turn into the same sort of mass murderer that Assad had become because of all the different factions here. whether Russia will abandon Tartus and head on to the secret base they have here on the Libyan coast, which is not so secret, for their warm water port, I can't say. But whatever happens, I do know that Turkey and Iran are going to be clashing quite soon, and the Kurds are going to be massacred between them all. And Iraq will probably break away from Iran and might be taken over in part by Saudi Arabia, for their own protection, of course. Meanwhile, Jordan's keeping its head down. And the Israelis, well, I would like to say they're sitting back and eating popcorn right now, but it's no good having a fire in your neighbour's house. You can't just sit back and enjoy it. That fire could affect them quite badly, and Lebanon pretty soon. It depends who gets primacy in Syria. If it's the jihadists, well then we all have a problem, because it's no good having jihadists in that sort of proximity to the Mediterranean Sea. And as for Iran, if they turn nasty, they can turn the oil off here. And they can get their Houthi associates to turn the shipping channels off here. So it could end up pretty terrible for all of us here in Europe as well. Isn't that a wonderful thought? Okay, right, till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.